So Jabba the JJ, director of The Force Awakens, the film that introduced his beloved waifu Rey, once gave an infamous TED Talk where he discussed his favourite writing technique, the mystery box. And what is this coveted mystery box? And that's basically the mystery box. The mystery box is basically the foreplay of the movie industry. It's okay within the first 10 minutes, maybe half an hour if you've got something really good hidden up your sleeve, but after half an hour of it you just kind of think, alright, I want my 15 quid back. The Force Awakens is basically a full film of this. It's literally 3 hours of unanswered questions non-stop. But the thing is with The Force Awakens, there's enough going on that it's actually interesting to watch, so you don't feel like you're leaving the theatre with blue balls. At least in my opinion. JJ's Star Wars wasn't the worst, but I wouldn't be in such a rush to watch it again. But suspiciously, JJ the jet plane has decided to take off from the project and left time travel man and Bruce Willis lover Rian Johnson in charge. Now Ryan, this dude. I love and hate this dude at the same time. My feelings are so mixed on Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson! Now, Mr. Johnson is listed as writer-director in the credits, which I think is supposed to give this film an air of authenticity, because an auteur wrote it. However, it's fairly apparent that Disney gave him a checklist of things he had to include, because half the time the film feels like the film wants to tear Star Wars a structurally superfluous new behind. For instance, the film loves to insist that the Force is poopy, and it denies every single fan theory that I've seen on the internet. Oh, Mr. Johnson, you're so naughty! What am I doing with my life? But at the same time, it feels like the only interesting stuff in the movie that Rian Johnson actually cared to write was the Jedi stuff. Most everything else in the movie that doesn't involve Jedis or lightsabers going pew pew is basically pointless. It's uninteresting drivel. There's this excruciatingly boring scene later on in the film where Finn and a new character, who's named after her personality, a potted plant, decide to venture off into a space casino and do nothing particularly of interest for like half the movie. Side note, a big problem with these movies that I've noticed is that they don't really explain a lot about the backstory of the universe. I know that's a weird thing to say, and most people are going to counter this point by saying, well, the originals didn't explain much of the backstory to their universe. But I feel like the original series, they set their universe out to be more simple. It was based more around the American War for Independence. They were a civilization fighting for independence from an oppressive monarchy. But in Return of the Jedi, we're told that they've defeated the Empire and have basically reclaimed the galaxy to become the Republic again. But the movies make it clear that they've won. They've taken over. This isn't like in the EU, where Darth Sidious clones himself so the Saturday morning cartoon can continue for 60 more years. But in The Force Awakens, the First Order is depicted very North Korean-esque as some sort of like rogue rebel nation that want to overthrow the Republic. But they do that by the end of the first film pretty easily. Leia's entire Republic just kind of crumbles after the destruction of one planet. Have you learned nothing from history? Did you watch the prequels? But yeah, the new films like to pretend like they're just the same as the old ones. Oh look, it's the rebels fighting the evil empire. But the annoying thing is that I think the idea of the Republic fighting like a rebel faction is actually more interesting. But no, it's let's go back to the old thing. You know, bugger you. Oh, what's that? You want this interesting plot about rebels? No, go home. Oh. Sidetrack over, I guess. It feels as though the Jedi stuff had the most amount of effort placed in it, because whenever Rey and Luke were on screen, I always found myself captivated. The other plots were just really there to add a bit of excitement for the filthy normies in the audience. It really didn't contribute much to the plot, and it really wasn't that interesting. I loved watching Rey and Kylo Ren's hilariously awkward, love interactions. I didn't get very much shipping from the movie, but I heard behind the scenes somewhere. This is completely anecdotal. I have no idea where I found this from. But I read somewhere that they apparently were trying to ship these two? Like, isn't that pure fan fiction right there? He murdered her friend that, true, she only knew for like half a day. But still, you don't marry murderous people. That, it tends not to go very well in the long run. I think if you just had the movie start off on the Salt Planet and literally just have nothing but Luke and Rey stuff the entire time, I would have liked this film a lot more. But then the film would probably only be like 40 minutes long, and that's not good enough for Daddy Disney. I think the biggest problem with this film by far is the mix of JJ's mystery box and Mr. Johnson's ever so helpful buggering up of the Star Wars lore. Because the way the film is written, it feels like he's almost teasing you. He's like, oh, what is this? Oh, it's nothing. But JJ's strategy of writing The Force Awakens almost requires the payoff to be something interesting. This would have been fine if there was something else interesting going on in this film, but there really wasn't. Like, the only thing I was really attached to was, oh, who is Mr. Daddy Snoke? And it's like, oh, he's no one. It's like, why did... This is the problem with having multiple directors. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to replicate the way the originals were written, with multiple directors and multiple writers. But the problem with this is that, like, in the original trilogy they built off of what the last one had made. Rian Johnson is just straight up, no, bugger off, Mr. JJ, and he's just torn it down. I mean, you've got to respect the balls on this guy. He's handed possibly the biggest franchise in the history of ever, and he takes a pin and just goes right into stabbing it. It's like, oh, Mr. Jade, why would you do that to Star Wars? I mean, I don't really care, but I didn't pay to see this, so I don't really... Justice League was better! What? So Jar Jar Abrams, director of The Last... Wait, wrong film. Once gave an infamous Once gave an infamous TED Talk where he discussed his favorite hack writing strategies. Mr. Abraham abuses this writing technique like it's his... I can't go there, no way.